History 1. First off, I'm a 24-year-old guy. I've been hitting the gym regularly, so I'm pretty solid and built. Not someone you'd go out of your way to avoid in a dark alley, but not exactly an easy target either. Just a regular dude, really. Anyway, before this starts sounding like a bad dating profile, let's get into it. I was with my girlfriend Chloe, and it was around 10:30 p.m., already dark out. We had just left a buddy's place and were heading to a nearby diner to meet some other friends. It was about a 20-minute drive. We pulled out of the driveway and started heading down the road. About 3 minutes in, I noticed this big old truck riding our tail. It swerved a bit, but it didn't seem like the driver was drunk. The speed limit was around 45, and I was doing about 50 since the road was straight and empty. Then the truck started flashing its lights at us. Usually that means my lights are off, they want me to pull over, or maybe I'm not driving right. But I just had my car checked, so the lights were fine, and I was driving just a bit over the limit. Plus, they could have easily passed me in the passing zone, but they didn't. So I just kept driving. The truck got ridiculously close, not just a few feet, but right on our bumper. No other cars were around, so I decided to take some side roads. I knew the area pretty well, so I felt confident we could lose them. Meanwhile, Chloe kept nagging about wanting to get to the diner. Classic girlfriend move. I took a side road and, of course, the truck followed, still flashing its lights. I kept turning onto different roads, trying to shake them off, but they stuck like glue. Finally, Chloe started to catch on that something wasn't right. She got nervous, and so did I. Our town isn't the safest, with a pretty high crime rate. I've heard stories about gangs trying to run people off the road or force them to pull over. So, yeah, we were both pretty scared at this point. I kept taking these side roads, but the truck wouldn't let up. We finally ended up near a Walmart. This particular Walmart has a back road where trucks unload. I took that road without signaling, hoping to lose them. I pushed the gas, hitting about 85 miles per hour on that narrow road, but the truck kept up. The road looped around to the main parking lot, and I blew through stop signs and ignored all road rules. Under the bright Walmart lights, I finally got a good look at the truck. It was red and beat up. I could see the diner in the distance, so I decided we'd park there and deal with it. Chloe was actually tearing up by now. This whole situation was freaky. As we pulled into the diner's parking lot, I realized the red truck was gone. Just disappeared. I looked at Chloe for a few seconds, trying to reassure her, and when I looked back, the truck was nowhere in sight. It was freaky as hell. We went inside and met up with our friends. They could tell something was off with us. We were so rattled we didn't even order food, despite being starving. I glanced out the window and saw the same red truck parked a few rows behind our car, just sitting there with its lights on. At this point, I'd had enough. I grabbed a steak knife from the table and went outside to see what the hell was going on. When I got to the truck, there was nobody inside. The back seat was full of random stuff: duct tape, tools, a tarp, and other everyday items that seemed creepy as hell at the time. I took a picture of the license plate and waited around for the owner to show up, but they never did. I'm sure they saw me standing there looking like some kind of weirdo with my hoodie up. I called the cops and reported the situation, especially since gang activity had been picking up in the area. It could have been a bunch of teenagers messing around, but still, don't mess with me, my girlfriend, or our night out. History 2. I'm a woman in my late 20s living in a mid-sized town on the outskirts of a trendy neighborhood. It's close enough to downtown to still feel urban, but it's generally quiet and considered safe by most folks around here. Sure, we have our fair share of car break-ins, but that's about the extent of our crime. Besides my full-time gig at a marketing firm, I work part-time as a hostess at a swanky restaurant. After my shift ended around 11 p.m. one Sunday, I wasn't in the mood to cook and had a craving for a cold beer. So I decided to head to the bar across the street for a late-night bite, still dressed in my work clothes, a neat dress and heels. This bar's a bit of a dive, and I always forget they have live punk shows in the back room on Sunday nights, which draws a pretty rowdy crowd. The noise and the crowd didn't bother me much until towards the end of my meal, someone bumped into my stool. I turned around to see a man, probably 10 to 15 years older than me, standing right behind my chair, grinning at me. At first, I thought he was just another tipsy guy trying to get the bartender's attention. But then, I felt his hand lightly touching my back, and he kept smiling. I had just finished settling my tab, so feeling a bit uncomfortable, I got up from the bar stool, stumbling slightly as I did. "Are you all right?" he asked. He was tall and thin, wearing a green flannel jacket and a beanie. "Yeah, I'm good. I've only had a couple of drinks. I'm not drunk or anything," I replied, explaining that the high bar stools were a bit tricky for someone my height. He gave me another smile and said, "You just seem so sweet and innocent. I wanted to make sure you're okay and feel safe here." I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. Even though I might have looked out of place, I've lived near this bar for years and been there more times than I can count. "I'm fine, really," I insisted. "Do you want me to walk you to your car just to make sure you get there safe?" he offered. By now, I was more than tired of his unwelcome attention. I've dealt with plenty of creeps approaching me when I'm out alone, but what I said next was a big mistake, one I won't repeat. "Actually, I live just across the street, but thanks, I'm okay." His eyes lit up with a strange excitement, and he stepped closer, gently putting his hands on my shoulders. With a wide grin, he pulled me into an awkward hug, despite my resistance. "I just want to make sure you're protected," he said, still holding that unsettling smile. "Whatever, dude. Good night," I muttered, pulling away and heading home. My walk back was uneventful, and I quickly forgot about the encounter. The area around my apartment sees a lot of foot traffic due to nearby bars and convenience stores, and it's well lit until around 1:30 or 2 a.m. A couple of nights later, I was in my bedroom, which faces the street and has a small balcony attached. It's on the second floor, and the only ways to get up there are either through my room or by climbing up from the street, a pretty tough feat. That night, around midnight, as I was reading in bed, I heard a soft thump followed by faint footsteps outside on the balcony. I turned to look out the window, and there he was, the same guy from the bar standing at the edge of my balcony, smiling and waving like we were old friends. My heart raced, and I bolted out of my room and through the back door, remembering the terrifying home invasion I'd experienced years before. I called the police, and they arrived within minutes, but by then, he was gone. The officers gave me the usual advice: lock all doors and windows, keep pepper spray by the bed, and for heaven's sake stop telling strangers where I live. They said if I saw him again I should call them immediately. Since that night, I've been haunted by thoughts of what could have happened. What if I'd been asleep? What if he had broken in? What if he'd had a weapon? It's horrifying to think that this might not have been his first time watching me, that he could have been stalking me without my knowledge. From now on, I'm keeping my blinds shut. I've often felt a creeping sensation of being watched while sitting in bed, but I'd always brushed it off as paranoia. Now I'm not taking any chances. What happened was already terrifying enough, and I don't want to think about how much worse it could have been.